I always say like, okay, I don't want to like cut corners and just cop out and just scream over something. Like if I can make if I can craft a melody and if I can craft other emotions that can be just embedded in the vocal delivery, I will. Like I never want to take the easy way out. And I think with the way we wrote these songs, it just allowed for more, like just a larger spectrum of vocal, like of just vocals.
What's up, everybody? It's Keefy at GhostCultMag.com. I am super stoked to Lauren of Red-Handed Denial. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, it's so cool for you to be here, and I'm really, grateful. Super cool band, new to me recently, but been kicking around for a minute. First of all, fun name. I was thinking about this. It's like bands with three names. It was like a whole thing for a while in the 90s where every band had to have three names. And the infamous one is Stone Temple Pilots, right? Had like several different names. They had an entire record press with a whole different name. And then they were going to be sued by a blues artist who had that name.
Oh.
And it really fucked them up because it was, and then they went with a completely different name and had to repress like, I don't know, thousands of records, which is crazy. Major labels could do that back in the major label heyday of the 80s. You could not do that today. It would bankrupt anybody.
No.
Like, oh, we're gonna throw away all these CDs and vinyl and make all new ones with the new logo, reprint, repress everything. I can't even imagine. But cool name. And just like serial killers have three names and presidents have three names, three named bands. So tell me a little bit about yourself, Lauren. Tell me how band came together. What's like the comic book origin story page?
Page one. So the band existed before I joined, but I think the band really became a band once I joined. I started singing the day that I auditioned for Red-Handed Denial. I had never sang in front of anybody before, and I found a classified ad on MySpace, Toronto band seeking vocalist, and I was like, I am a freshman in college. I'm ready to join a band and do the thing. So I went to a rehearsal space, not knowing anybody. And the very first song that I sang was Blood Meat by Protest the Hero. And the rest is history. The rest is history.
Amazing. First of all, I would not have guessed that this was your first band or never been in a band before this band. That's crazy. Protest the Hero, criminally underrated somehow. They're so good, and I miss them so much. It's kind of, I know they're kind of doing like, we're busy, we're doing stuff, then we're not, then we're busy, and that's the journey right now. It's very expensive to have a band. Older bands have families and lives and work, but that's so fun. What was the thing that inspired you to go start being, I want to now make music, or did you always sing? Did you always want to sing? Obviously metal.
I never sang. I started as just like I was a toddler, and my parents noticed like I was banging on pots and pans and stuff, and they were like, oh, we should probably put her in music. So I played piano for years, and I absolutely hated it because it was so like stuffy and formal, and I didn't want to spend my time playing classical music. I was like, I want to make my own music. So I quit piano when I was 14, and then I stopped because it was stopped music altogether for a bit. And then I rejoined school band, and I played trumpet through high school, and then was in a ska band for like a year. And I was like, what if I sang in this ska band? And they were like, no, we want a boy to sing. And I was like, okay, well, fuck you. I don't like that. So I left, and I was like, I'm not into that. So I just always wanted to be in a band. Just the music I listened to at that time, like Blink-182, Linkin Park, My Chemical Romance, The Used. Like I was so into like emo and alternative music. And I was like, I want to do that. And Paramore obviously like was super inspiring at that time. And I was like, okay, I want to do that. So the first chance I got was freshman of college, and I was like, I want to be in a metal band.
That's amazing. Hey, listen, the emo stuff is forever. That stuff's classic.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan. If you're interested in how crazy the music industry is, my favorite writer, as a person that writes a lot, my favorite writer is a guy named, and he wrote a couple of incredible books. He wrote Laura Jane Grace's, co-wrote her, and he also wrote this book called Sellout about all the Warped Tour bands and like, how the major labels like, let's have a bunch of clones of Blink-182 who were doing their own version of NoFX, who were doing their own version of blank, blank, blank. Yeah, Paramore. I mean, I'm stoked they're back. I didn't love This Is Why. I'm the one person that didn't. It wasn't for me, but I
I didn't
love it.
like that album
I
either.
l- I did not like it. I was like, if you're gonna come back and make this record after, but like, I love them. I love Haley. Like Haley's insane.
But you're
Such a
not
good
alone in
vocalist.
that.
I don't
I
know.
I
I think.
also wasn't feeling that record either. I thought, I
Oh,
just didn't vibe with it.
I got some flames from friends and
It's fine.
online. How could you not like the Paramore record? They are on a pedestal. Bands that I love sometimes don't make good music. And they're great. I just didn't like that record. But let's talk A Journey Through Virtual Dystopia is a new record. It's coming out on Paid Vacation Records later in this month as we record this now. This record's killer. I spent a
Thank
bunch of
you.
time with, yeah, congrats. I spent a bunch of time with this record. What does it look like for your band to go into the studio? So now you've been in the band a while. You have a lot of different, you're able to sort of craft your own vocal style, what does it look like to before you go record? Did you guys do a lot of like, did you have all the songs finished? Did you do a lot of pre-production? I'm always curious about like what happens in the run up to pressing record.
Yeah, so this is full length album number 4 for us. And we are a band of overthinkers and preparers. So up until Virtual Dystopia, we would usually go into the studio with like 95% of all the parts locked in. I would come in with like lyric sheets and all that. This album was like the first album that we went in with I went in with nothing, no vocals, no lyrics, just little nuggets of ideas. We had 3.5 weeks to take this album from 0 to 100. We challenged ourselves on a songwriting in a songwriting way. And we just had little bits and pieces of demos. I think we had maybe 5 instrumental demos, and I was toying around with like vocal melodies and nothing was really like, okay, that's the one. So we rewrote a lot of it. So you could pretty much say we went in with like 10% of any ideas, which was very scary for us. We were like, we're not getting this done. We're stressed. It was very, very challenging. And we kind of flopped our songwriting process. Because usually Chris will come to me with a bunch of guitar riffs. He'll have songs demoed out, and I will take the guitar riffs and sometimes say like, hey, I can't sing on this because there's too much going on. So I'll take what Chris gives me and I will make it into a song. But this time, we really went in with starting with vocals. So making sure that, the keys were correct, finding that sweet spot for me, and just centering around the vocal and just doing everything to best serve the song instead of like creating these like confines and boxes for ourselves. Like, oh, this has to be this shreddy, or like this has to be this heavy. Like we really just went in with like, let's make the best songs we can. And I think the album is a testament to our efforts in songwriting.
Work. I was going to say after 3 previous albums, so that means you probably have 30, 40, maybe 50 songs, and songs we haven't heard, stuff you rejected or whatever. So does that process, obviously you learn from your history,
Yes.
you learn from experience, like this is what I know we're capable of, and you try to push the envelope to get better. I love hearing that process. That's really cool. And yeah, I used to be a band person, and I was also a vocalist. And yes, some things can be too riffy and complicated to vocalize over. Whatever it is, I know like the prevailing wisdom is like, okay, if it's a heavy, complicated part, just scream. But it's not
Exactly.
It's not always, just do a big scream. But it's not always that simple.
Right. And like I'm a vocalist with a relatively large wheelhouse. Like I can do singing and screaming. But at the end of the day, like I love to sing. And if I can sing, I will. And I always say like, okay, I don't want to like cut corners and just cop out and just scream over something. Like if I can if I can craft a melody and if I can craft other emotions that can be just embedded in the vocal delivery, I will. Like I never want to take the easy way out. And I think with the way we wrote these songs, it just allowed for more, like just a larger spectrum of vocals.
Yeah, I get that totally. And I also was, by the way, a classical music person. I didn't play piano, but I wonder now if any of that stuff comes back. Does it come back for you now, even if you hated it back then, especially the piano? I mean, like, first of all, like brass and woodwind are brutally hard to learn and master because of technique and things like that. Piano, I always say piano and guitar are like the 2 easiest things to start on and hard to master. But is there anything that is like sort of now baked into you, whether you like it or not, that now
Yeah.
comes through in your melody making or things like that?
I think piano is such a rudimentary and important instrument if you're doing anything music related, because it's like a really good visual indication of like scales and what you're gonna sing. So finally I got to like, it kind of was a full circle moment because when we were writing One More Night, it was like the first time I was able to like physically play any sort of keyboards on an album. And I kind of sat at the master computer and I was like, okay, I need a keyboard. Like someone get me a keyboard, because we didn't really know where to go with the song. And I was like, okay, let's like plug in the MIDI, like get me on just like a basic synth noise. And I started playing around with like different voicings, and for whatever reason I thought about like, it's like, what would Zed write, or like what would Ellie Goulding sing, and like it came to be like just that synthy opening to One More Night, and I finally got to use my piano knowledge on that, and it was really nice. It was a good full circle moment.
That's so fun. And also, that kind of also helps me with my segue, which is like, it seems like the band is not afraid to try different
Mhm.
things. And those things that you tried lasted and made the record. Because sometimes experiments, like you said, they don't, if you're creating in the studio, like we're going to finish this here, but also like it worked. There's a lot, like there's no two songs that sound exactly the same, but it all sounds like your band, which is a very cool, it's not easy to pull that off.
Thank you. Yeah, and this band has always kind of done whatever it wanted. Like we come from a very like math metal, very riff heavy. I call it Nintendo metal, like very like almost the guitar leads are a separate voice, and it's like we still do that. Like you hear that in songs like Eat Glass. It's like a little, we tip our hat to our old selves, which is fine. Our favorite band is literally Protest the Hero. It's there's that's no secret. You hear it in our music, but we've grown as a band for over a decade, and we obviously listen to a lot of different stuff. So we've always just wanted to represent every band member's influences with the things we write. And I think I just have such a deep love for like pop music and R&B and hip hop that like I've always wanted to like bring that into RHD more, which is why we have like we always make an effort to have these big grandiose choruses that are like very theatrical. And I think we were able to like execute that on this album just from a songwriting perspective, just to like dial it in a little bit so like it's more listenable, allows the vocals to shine on their own and for people to just be able to sing along. And I think this is easily the most dynamic album that we've ever written. It's by no means the heaviest album we've ever had, but I think it allows the heavy songs to shine in that way. And I think like if we had a whole album of Smokescreen or a whole album of Parasite, I think that's boring. And I think that's just very one note. So like having a dynamic album where we just like feel we can do whatever the hell we want, like it makes it more interesting and more of a deep album instead of just like a top heavy album.
Killer. And again, that's self-awareness. Other bands, I always like very successful bands, older bands, they don't have that self-awareness and the editing. It's like, oh, we're really good at this one thing, let's just do that a lot. And that's not always what makes a fulfilling record or a great.
Yeah.
On that note, and again, helping me with the segues, helping me do my job. Thank you. Unfortunately, I'm retired. I can't help you with yours. But let's jump into the track by track. And whatever you feel like sharing about the song or anything is always useful to us. And I'm sure I'll hear from you. So the album kicks off with, as you mentioned, Paris.
Yeah. So Parasite, just as an overarching theme, like obviously it's the discontent and interesting times that we live in on a digital level and how we've kind of been rewired. And with every track, like my intention was to have that overarching theme, but also to like make sure that people can also draw other connections to the lyrics as well. So on face value, like Parasite, social media, draining. It's a leech. We are obsessed with it and we also hate it at the same time. But I think Parasite can also relate, a toxic relationship as well, which social media is a very toxic relationship that we have. So I think that song on a heavy level, it's very in your face. It's very obvious how pissed I am about it. And from a songwriting perspective, we went very Gen Z about it. We call that structure the chorus sandwich. So there's only two choruses. And we were like, you know what? This song has to end now. Like to do a whole other bridge and then another chorus and then an outro. Like we just felt like that was the right time to end the song. And I think it just makes more of an impact that way. Sometimes less is more.
often. My demise.
I call My Demise my unofficial vocal audition for the band Issues, which is no more. And when we wrote it, well, when Chris, this is a very Chris heavy song. This song didn't really change much from the demo. We listened to it and we're like, oh, this is totally inspired by Issues. And we love Issues. So we rolled with it. I brought in a lot of like Michael Jackson influences in the chorus. It's very layered. I think there's like 8 or 12 vocal layers in the choruses. Just a fun track. I think it brings out our fun side. We made a really stupid music video for it. We're wearing Adidas tracksuits. We don't really take ourselves too seriously in that way. We like to have fun. And I think it's a really fun track.
Fun is where it's at. Seriousness is okay, but fun is bad.
Yeah.
I love the call out on MJ. There's a YouTuber who's doing like a weird, like multi-year deep dive just on Thriller, every single layer of every single track of every single thing, and kind of there's this like other things. MJ was somehow not a talented genius person, which he was a genius musician, and notion that he didn't other people did the music for him is crazy. He did some of his own music on every song. Anyway, not a Phil Collins cover. I was really hoping, but One More Night is the third song.
I know. And we were also like singing Lionel Richie as well when we were like trying to decide like, okay, what are we doing with this song? I already talked about One More Night. It's my favorite song on the album. I think it's the most different that we've ever been. But I think it's just a testament to us not really caring about any sort of labels or boxes or genres. And we did exactly what the song wanted to do. And I think it has so many genres even within the one song. Breaks out in verse 2 into like a very post-hardcore screamy section, and then it goes into a very Emarosa-esque second half to the verse. So many genres in one song, and I love that song. It's so much fun to sing live. And the crowds during our tour that we just got off of absolutely loved it. They loved it. They were singing along.
It's a killer track, probably one of my favorites. And that reference for Emarosa is the old Emarosa, not the sort of recent Emarosa, which is also good. I like their last record, but some of their fans were like, I'm jumping. Peace. It's hard to change, fans sometimes won't let it. Sucks.
Yep.
Good band. The next track is Falling Back to You.
Yeah, so Falling Back to You, I don't know when this podcast is going to come out, but Falling Back to You is going to be the 4th like single. It's like gonna get its own music video. It's kind of like our genty ballad of the album. And then it ends with a cool guitar solo. As I was co-writing, I co-wrote the melodies with this really awesome like nerdcore artist. His name's Divide Music, and his voice literally sounds like Sam Smith. He is so incredible. So we were kind of toying around with like the verses, and they're very country-esque. So you hear a lot of country pop, which that seems like it's very out of left field, but just another testament to like genre bending and not being afraid to like draw from other inspirations outside of a seemingly very stale metalcore scene currently, in my opinion. Not being afraid to just branch out. And I think Falling Back to You is just like a very cool way to like have a very structured, for all intents and purposes, a ballad, a rock ballad, but to have those little nuggets of country pop and gent, and then a huge solo at the end. So I just think it's a solid song and a good sing-along one to be a track for.
Right on. A lot of modern music is just the why not both meme, and why not
Yes.
both? Why not everything if you do it well?
Exactly.
If it's done well. No notes. Great song. The next track is Driving Towards a Neon Sunset, ellipsis.
Ellipsis. So everyone I've talked to so far about like the track listing thought that it was very weird, this interlude in this spot, and then the next song being Smokescreen, and then the next song being another interlude. But we just felt it was right to cradle Smokescreen to be sort of the turning point of the album, and sort of like this little intermission. And also the 2 interludes are sort of a little nod to Chris, who for the first time took the co-producer seat for our band. So he did this track completely himself. He produced it and mixed it. And as we were realizing that this album was going to have a very synthesizer, very like Vice City theme, we were like, all right, Chris, let's make some cool industrial sounding tracks. And then we thought that this track would segue really well into Smokescreen.
Yeah, good stuff. I'm a big Stabbing West. Great band, still around, on tour right
Hell
now.
yeah.
Actually, such a
Yeah.
good band.
I'm a huge fan of Nine Inch Nails. So like,
yeah, tremendous. Yeah.
you know, so Trent Reznor, an absolute genius. So it was cool to have like our little homage to the industrial world as well.
Nice. I can highly recommend Challengers, the movie with the soundtrack from Trent and Atticus too. It's
absolutely. Absolutely.
Movies insane, and the soundtrack's brilliant. One of my friends, video editor, was like, there's a lot of music over the dialogue. I was like, I'm not going to tell Trent.
No, we can't. We not allowed.
Just let him go. Just let him go. Yeah, I love Smokescreen. Smokescreen's such a badass track. Next, and it's probably my favorite track on there. And I get that why, like you made the point earlier in the conversation here about it, like why it works so well.
Yeah, it's a nice palate cleanser too, because you have like a few, One More Night and Falling Back to You are a little bit of like, they're chiller. Obviously, they're not heavy. Instrumentally at least. So to transition from a very industrial song into Smokescreen, I think it hits really hard, and I think it's an amazing dynamic moment and a really good palate cleanser. I think it's probably sonically the heaviest song on the album, aside from Eat Glass, which is like a different kind of heavy. But Smokescreen became like our very industrial metal song, and we've never really done that before. We experimented with vocoders and vocal effects, especially in verse 1, kind of going with that grimy, distorted sound that we love about bands like Nine Inch Nails, and just bringing in that industrial influence. Obviously the very, very heavy breakdown at the end where we were like, bring it back but slower. And we had our moment, and we had fun with that ending a lot. We were contemplating whether to have that, and then we took it out and we're like, no, we need it. So we put it back in.
And then again, another shorty ellipsis.
Yes.
And then I found myself in a virtual dystopia.
Mm-hmm. And it is that turning point of the album as we journey through like emotions and the roller coaster of our relationship with the digital world. And obviously we have the heavy tracks, we have the more introspective soft tracks, but it just addresses all sides of the frustrations and the sentiments about the type of landscape that we're dealing with right now. So this track kind of carries into the second half of the album.
Right on. And then the aforementioned Eat Glass.
And then there's Eat Glass, which is obviously an homage to old Red Handed Denial. Our fun sort of like math metal, also some like hardcore elements. Like we are a big fan of like Every Time I Die. Rest in peace to that band. That's where our band name comes from. Is a Every Time I Die song. So I was like, I want to get very like almost Southern American metal about the choruses. I was like, I'm not singing a damn thing on this song. It's going to be balls to the wall. I don't care. Subject matter, I was extremely pissed. It's kind of my sentiments about those public figures with a public platform that use it very irresponsibly. And just the things I see on social media and those with influence using it very poorly and choosing to do that. And that's how pissed I am about that. It sucks. So that's what Eat Glass is. Just how pissed I am about that.
Very few times can an extremely heavy song be also a bop, but Eat Glass
it is a bop. I say little bitch in it. I've never said little bitch in a song before.
You
but
probably have never said it in a sentence. Like
I've never
said it out loud.
But it just felt right, and it kind of segued in the middle of that song into like a very nostalgic, like attack, stickly type breakdown. And it just felt right. I was like, I will scream little bitch into an attack breakdown. And that's how that goes.
I don't know if we just became new best friends, but all your references are 10 of 10. I have to tell you. Anyhow,
hell yeah.
For real, you're so awesome. I'm going to throw my own sarcasm that I'm interpreting into this. I hope you're happy.
Yeah, that is arguably my next favorite song on the album. I'm a sucker for acoustic emo songs that break out into the full band. So A Love Letter to If It Means a Lot to You by Day to Remember. This track was kind of the problem child of the album. So we had all the songs and we realized we needed one more. We dug through Chris's archives and we found a few songs that he had recorded with Lee a few years ago. And the original version of I Hope You're Happy was called Clutch. And it had a different vocalist on it. And it took the longest to just decide how we were going to write the bridge of I Hope You're Happy, because we wanted to get the strings right. We wanted to get the crescendo right. And the end of the song right. It's a different track for us. Again, we've never done an acoustic song on an album before, and it's a very personal song to me. I wrote that from my experiences with just acceptance, trying to find acceptance in my own family. And I think there's so many people out there on different levels who struggle with their own identity and who they are and who they are to their family. Because at the end of the day, we just want to be loved. That's all by our loved ones, the people who are close to us. And I Hope You're Happy is just like coming to terms with who you are and just being who you are, hoping that the people around you will accept you, but if they don't, then I hope you're happy.
The final track is Home.
Home. When we were kind of deciding the track order, we were like, wow, it's kind of wild to go from Eat Glass to I Hope You're Happy, then to close the album with Home. Because I think we always knew that Home was going to close the album, but we were arguing whether I Hope You're Happy should close the album. And we thought Home was a nice concluding track to the journey through virtual dystopia, because then at the end of the day, we come back home. And Home, on another level, it is my struggles with touring and the trials and challenges that we go through as touring musicians, because it is very difficult being away from home and our loved ones for long periods of time. But also on a different level, like Home is kind of recentering ourselves when we get lost in things like doom scrolling on TikTok. And it's like, okay, I need to go touch grass. And Home is kind of like that touch grass moment. We experimented sonically with like post rock, which is another thing we've never really done before. So we drew from bands like Citizen and kind of like that realm. And I think Home is just like a beautiful way to end the album. It's super melancholic, but I think it just is a nice conclusion to the album.
Right on. I dig it. It's definitely a nice resolve. So thank you for wrapping up that track by track. That was terrific. And
Thank you.
Yeah, A Journey Through Virtual Dystopia is hitting in all the right spots. Believe me when I tell you, like, it's a good record for these times. I work in marketing and media, and we're in a weird inflection point.
Weird.
When you've bought like the first thing you've ever bought off of TikTok, and now you've bought like 50 things off it. We have a problem. We have a real problem. Not that I'm not like, stuff is cool. Retail therapy's okay. Sometimes, where the world's on fire. If you want to treat yourself. But holy shit. So thanks for that. What are y'all gonna do to promote the record as we're leading up to it or right after it? Do you have some touring plan that you can share?
Yeah, we just got off of a month-long tour with Unprocessed. We did pretty much most of the United States and 3 Canadian dates. So it was our first tour back after a very long time, because we had a bunch of tours lined up before the pandemic in 2020, and then that happened. But it was really nice to be back and really nice to just reconnect with our fans who have been begging us to tour forever. And it was a wonderful, wonderful tour. I think Unprocessed was like the perfect pairing for our band. And they're one of the nicest bands we've ever toured with. So now that I'm back home, I've only been back for like 6 days. Now we can, make that last little push for our album, release some music videos, make some brain rot content for TikTok, and, do that stuff. And just enjoy it. I think like, we forget to just be present and look at what we did and just be proud of it. So we're going to take a little bit of time to just like be proud of our album and just promote it. And we're looking for touring opportunities that makes sense for us. Hopefully in the fall, we're exploring hopefully Europe as well. But just enjoying it and connecting with people who take the time to listen to it.
Right on. Well, maybe Keith's new band will take you guys out. Many
Yeah.
that would be sick, and you never know, and that's awesome. We premiered a video for Unprocessed like a year ago, so they're great. I like to end these interviews with a wild card question. I try to pick one out, especially for everybody. And here's one for you, since you just got off tour, which is, what is your best and worst food experience on the
Oh
road?
god.
And it could be from this recent one or just historic.
Oh god. Well, I definitely have a worst. I have a worst one. Best experience, there's been a lot. I think at least on this past tour, our goal is to always find like not McDonald's food. So I guess one that just comes to mind was we were in Portland and we found this like really nice Thai place, and it was just nice to have not fried food. And I think that's just like a nice thing to have on when you're on the road. Worst food experience. We were in Halifax and we were in like one of the most beautiful spots in the whole world called Peggy's Cove. Look it up. We're on the edge of the world at this little lobster shack and we're getting lobster. The band is arguing whether it's ethical to take a photo of your alive lobster and then a photo of the dead lobster after. Our band is fighting at the table. The lobsters arrived, ready to eat. I crack my lobster open and I find like in the tail it looks like red and green peppers. And I called the waiter over. I was like, "Hi, is this normal?" And she's like, "Oh, you got lucky. Looks like your lobster's a girl." And I was like, "Oh, so I just killed millions of lobster babies. Great. Good times." So I was really sad. And then later, Chris and I said, like, "Okay, I think it's fine if you take a photo of your lobster, the one you're going to eat, and then you take a picture of it." And everyone's like, "That's really fucked up. Karma's going to get you." Just as we're leaving the restaurant, Chris and I start to get a very bad stomachache. So we, as touring bands do, we pull up to the Walmart. Chris and I run in. Chris is vomiting all over the the parking lot. I run to the washroom. We experienced lobster karma that day. So no longer do we take photos of our lobsters before we eat them. And that's that story.
Wow.
Very sad. Very
Yeah, that's a whole lot to unpack, but
It was a
awesome.
lot.
Thanks
We
for
were gonna make
sharing.
a shirt like with a lobster on it because it was just
I
a
think
moment.
at least a shirt or a song title. I mean,
Yeah.
Mainers can
Lobster
relate
karma.
to Lobster Karma would be a great song title. So sorry that happened to you. Yeah, that's insane on a lot of levels, and that's what these stories are. They just kind of, hey, anything is possible, good or bad. I'm glad you had wonderful Thai food, and I hope you find real food on the road on your next tour, and less of the fast food if we can handle it. Very high in sodium. Fast food,
Very.
by the way, people don't realize. But anywho, Lauren, it is amazing getting to talk to you and hear all about the band and a journey through virtual dystopia coming out soon. We were talking offline about Paid Vacation Records, underrated label, a lot of killer bands, a lot of good stuff going on. Super stoked on your success, and I wish you the best. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll do this
Thank
again
you.
sometime.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time, and anyone listening, thank you for sticking around, and I hope you really like the album.
Word. We're gonna link everything in the description where people can find you and do the brain dead social media.
Yay.
Take care.
Take care. Thank you.